Hi everyone, glad to see you back on the channel. Today we are going to take a deep and clear look at a major international development that is making headlines around the world. Iran has issued a warning that it may target US investments in the region if tensions continue to rise or if it comes under attack. This statement has sparked serious concern among governments, investors, and ordinary people who are trying to understand what this could mean for global stability, the Middle East, and the world economy. To understand why this warning matters, we first need to look at the broader background of US-Iran relations. These two countries have had a tense and often hostile relationship for decades. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, diplomatic ties were cut, and both sides have viewed each other with deep mistrust. Over the years, there have been moments of negotiation and limited cooperation, but these were usually followed by renewed tensions, sanctions, and confrontations. In recent years, the situation has become even more complicated. The United States withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 and reimposed heavy economic sanctions. Iran responded by gradually reducing its compliance with the agreement and increasing its nuclear activities. At the same time, both sides have been involved in indirect conflicts across the Middle East, including in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, often through allied groups and proxy forces. Now, the latest warning from Iran takes this tension into a new and more dangerous direction. An influential Iranian cleric and political figure suggested that if the United States carries out any military action against Iran, Tehran could retaliate by targeting US-linked investments and economic interests across the region. This is not just a military threat. It is also an economic one, and that is why it has caused such alarm in financial markets and political circles. When Iran talks about US investments in the region, it is referring to a wide range of assets and projects. These include American-owned or American-backed oil and gas facilities, infrastructure projects, ports, shipping routes, financial institutions, technology hubs, and major commercial developments in countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Iraq. Many of these investments are critical not only to US companies but also to the economies of the host countries. One of the most sensitive areas is energy. The Middle East is home to some of the world's largest oil and gas reserves, and US companies have invested heavily in exploration, production, refining, and transport. Any disruption to these facilities could lead to a spike in global energy prices, fuel shortages, and economic instability far beyond the region. This is one reason why even a verbal warning from Iran is taken very seriously. Another key factor is shipping and trade. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, is one of the most important shipping routes in the world. A large portion of the world's oil passes through it every day. Iran has previously threatened to block or disrupt traffic in this strait during times of high tension. If Iran were to target US-linked shipping or port facilities, it could create chaos in global trade and raise insurance costs for shipping companies. The timing of this warning is also important. It comes at a moment when the United States has increased its military presence in the Middle East. According to recent reports, US naval assets, including aircraft carriers and guided missile destroyers, are moving closer to the region. American officials say this is meant to deter aggression and protect US interests, but Iranian leaders see it as a provocation and a sign that Washington may be preparing for confrontation. Iranian officials argue that their warning is purely defensive. They say that Iran does not want war but will not hesitate to respond if it is attacked. From their perspective, targeting US investments would be a way to impose costs on Washington without necessarily engaging in a direct, large-scale military conflict. It would be a form of economic warfare. From the US point of view, this kind of threat is unacceptable and destabilizing. American officials have made it clear that any attack on US assets or allies would be met with a strong response. They argue that Iran's actions, including its nuclear program and its support for armed groups in the region, are the real sources of instability. This back and forth highlights a dangerous cycle. Each side believes it is acting defensively, but each move by one side is seen as aggressive by the other. This makes miscalculation more likely. A single incident, such as an attack on a commercial facility or a clash at sea, could quickly escalate into a much larger conflict. Another layer to this story is Iran's internal situation. The country has been facing widespread protests and economic hardship. International sanctions have hurt its economy, leading to high inflation, unemployment, and shortages of basic goods. Some analysts believe that Iranian leaders may be using tough rhetoric against the United States to rally domestic support and shift attention away from internal problems. At the same time, Iran's leadership is under pressure from hardline factions that oppose any compromise with the West. These groups argue that the only way to deal with the United States is through strength and resistance. For them, threatening U.S. investments is a way to show that Iran is not weak and will not back down. The reaction from other countries in the region has been cautious and worried. Many Middle Eastern governments host U.S. investments and rely on American military protection, but they also have economic and diplomatic ties with Iran. They do not want to be caught in the middle of a conflict between two powerful adversaries. Some are calling for calm and urging both sides to return to dialogue. European countries have also expressed concern. The European Union has long supported efforts to revive the Iran nuclear deal and reduce tensions. European officials worry that any attack on economic assets in the region would harm global markets and undermine years of diplomatic work. They are urging restraint and offering to mediate between Washington and Tehran. China and Russia, both of which have close ties with Iran, are watching the situation closely. China in particular has significant investments in Iran and the broader Middle East. It has an interest in regional stability and secure energy supplies. While Beijing has criticized U.S. sanctions on Iran, it is also likely to discourage Tehran from taking actions that could lead to war. For global investors, this warning is a major red flag. Financial markets hate uncertainty, and the possibility of attacks on major economic assets creates exactly that. Some investors have already started to pull money out of risky projects in the region or demand higher returns to compensate for the increased danger. This could slow down development and hurt economic growth in Middle Eastern countries. Oil prices are another area of concern. Even the hint of trouble in the Middle East often leads to a rise in oil prices, as traders fear supply disruptions. If Iran were to follow through on its warning and target U.S. linked energy facilities, prices could jump sharply. This would affect consumers around the world, leading to higher fuel costs and inflation. There is also the human cost to consider. Any attack on economic infrastructure could put thousands of workers at risk. Many of these facilities employ local people who have nothing to do with political disputes. Damage to infrastructure could also disrupt essential services like electricity, water, and transportation. Some analysts argue that Iran's warning is more about deterrence than actual intent. They believe Tehran wants to scare Washington into thinking twice about any military action. By highlighting the vulnerability of U.S. investments, Iran is trying to raise the potential cost of conflict to an unacceptable level.